In this code, we're asking the user to enter a number. We're then converting the string, because input returns a string, into an integer, this number. And this works fine if you actually enter a number. However, if you enter a string or just any string at all, it's going to crash and burn. Hello, I'm James Humphrey. One of the biggest mistakes that I see people make when they're beginners is not understanding what could go wrong when they're using specific functions. Today, we're going to take a look at 2 ways that we can handle this error, and we're also going to go into how we could prompt the user over and over for a number value until they actually give us a number instead of entering a string. Now, the first method that we're going to use to solve this is checking before we do the conversion if it's actually a number. Now, we can do this because of how strings are implemented inside Python. So our input function returns user input as a string, and then we can run methods on the string that were created in the Python core. The one that we're going to use, we go user input, and I'm press tab there to have it autofill, and it is called isDigit. So we're going to hit tab again, open the parentheses, and then this is a little bit of documentation on what the function actually does. It returns a Boolean type, which is either true or false. Let's read what it does, and I'll explain it more simplified. It says return true if the string is a digit string, false otherwise. A string is a digit string if all characters in the string are digits and there is at least one character in the string. So that means if you send it an empty string, then it's going to be false. If it's all numbers, it's going to be true. If it's some numbers and some characters, then it's going to be false. So now let's take that and let's do an if statement. And we're going to say if user input is digit, then what we're going to do is print out is number. Otherwise, which we use else, we're going to print is not a number. And we can comment out a line by doing a pound in front of it. So let's go ahead and run our program again. Enter a number. We're going to enter 12 again. It is a number. I hit up arrow to refill it, hit enter, and we'll type in string, and it's going to say is not a number. And then we're just going to put in blank, and it's going to be not a number. So now what we could do then is go ahead and uncomment this. We can copy with Control C, and then Control V to put this under here. And we'll only do our conversion if it's actually a number. So now we have the behavior that we enter in, oops, I got to click down here on the terminal. It is a number and it does the conversion. In the other case, it entered a string and it's not a number and it didn't crash and burn our program. Fantastic. Now let's change it so that it prompts the user over and over until they enter a number. Now let's look at an alternate way to approach the problem. We're going to use something called a try and except. What this allows you to do is to call the command, let it fail, but then recover from that failure. So to do this, let's get rid of most of our program here. I can hold Shift plus Tab to remove my tab, by the way. And we're going to just remove this and this and this as well. All the way back to our original here, which I probably should have just retyped. What we're going to do is wrap around whichever thing that can fail. So the input can't really fail, but this conversion is where it fails. So what we're going to do is go try colon, and then we're going to indent. And then if we mouse over here, see it as the red underscore. It says try statement must have at least one except or finally clause. So we need to put in an except. So what we're going to do here is if we have an exception, we're going to now print you didn't, it's actually capitalized, you didn't enter a number. And let's go ahead and run this. And we're going to enter just a test string. The reason this happened is although this is a single line of code, each piece is executed in order one at a time. First, the conversion operation int user input is called, then a variable is created called number, and the result is stored in that variable. Since the value error occurred during the conversion, the variable wasn't created and the value wasn't stored. So we then tried to print a variable that does not exist. Now, if we actually read what the error was this time, we'll see name error, name number is not defined. So we actually solved one problem, but we actually created a brand new problem with our code. For right now, let's just get rid of this and run it again. And we're going to put in test here. and we're going to see it says you didn't enter a number. And instead of that, it just continues on. So now let's go set up our whole loop again. So we're going to do while true, and we're going to indent all this. Okay. So what we're going to do here is set the number, and then we're going to break out of our loop here. So if this goes successfully, it'll go to this next line. Otherwise, it's going to go here, and then it will go back into the loop and try to get a number again. So now let's run this. So we're going to enter a string. It's going to say you didn't enter a number. Prompt us again. Test 1, 2, 3, 4. Nope. Okay. 134. And then it continued. And so now what we're going to do is print out number. And let's just go 1, 2, 3, 4. And it printed out 1, 2, 3, 4 for us. Now, this except here was a catch-all except, which means it's going to catch every single error that happens in this little try. That's not a good thing to do, because sometimes you're going to catch errors that you didn't even know exist, and you probably still want your program to crash and burn so that you could figure out what's going on. So let's go ahead and comment out our try and our except and our prints. Let's just go ahead here now and let this fail. It doesn't like our indent here. Go back, take that out. So it's going to run one time because it's going to run here, but it's actually going to crash, burn, fail. So let's hit play. And then we're going to enter a code. And what you're going to see here is it says value error. And this right here is the type of exception that we have. So let's go ahead and put our code back in, re-indent. Take out that content here. And now we're only going to be accepting on value error. Run that. To test, you didn't enter a number. Enter a number, 1, 2, 3. So see our code still works here at the end. Now let's take our whole program one step further. Let's actually ask the user for 2 numbers and go ahead and add them together. Now I want you to pause the video and see if you can get 2 different numbers from the user and print those out. Okay, let me show you how I would do this. So what we're going to do, let's go ahead and keep number here, and we're going to change this to number underscore X. We're going to say enter a number X, and we're going to do number underscore X here. And now let's prompt for a Y. So we're going to copy that whole thing and put it down here. And we're going to change this to Y. And we're going to change this to enter a number Y. And then we're going to go ahead and say number Y is equal to int, user input, enter a number. And then we're going to print the sum of these 2 things. So we're going to do number X plus number Y. Let's go ahead and run this code. So we're entering a number 12 and let's say 32, and it will add the 2 together. Otherwise, if we do like test here, it's going to keep looping until we give it an actual number. So let's say hi, bye, fly, and then 32, and it printed 32 and the 44 here, which is the sum of that. Now, this is technically correct, but it's pretty terrible code. And that's because we're duplicating most of what we're actually doing here. Now, that is terrible programming. What we usually want to do is do as little amount of duplication as possible. So what we're going to do is introduce a function. So what we're going to do is def, and we're going to say get int, and we can send in an argument here if we want, but we're not going to do that for now. And what we're going to do is copy all of our code in here, and we go ahead and we indent just like we did for the loop. And then instead of printing at the end, what we need to do is we actually need to return a value, and we're going to just go ahead and return number X. But let's just change this back to number. So we're going to just say enter a number again. So we didn't enter a number X. So what are we doing here? We're grabbing a user input, and then we're trying and we're going into the loop. We're at telling them they didn't enter a number, and then we are returning a number. So now what we could do is get rid of all of our code here. That's right, all of it. And what we can do is go ahead and enter, we're going to say now number x is equal to get int, number y is equal to get int, and then we could go ahead and let's go ahead and just print number x, print out number y, and then print out that. Doesn't like this because I messed up my indent, so we need this within our while loop. So we indent there. And so now let's run this program. We are going to have 12, 32, and it's 44. Let's run it again. And we're going to say test, hi, by, 12, hi, by, test, 13, and it gave us 13, 25. Now what we actually could do, we actually want enter a number x, enter a number y in here. So what we need to do is add in an input. So what we're going to do is message. So we're going to declare message here, and then we're going to swap this with message. And so now when we're calling this, we're going to need to actually send it a message. And we're going to put in here, enter a number x. This time we're going to call it with enter a number y. And now let's run our program again. So enter a number x, test, enter a number y, and boom, we got 13, 25 again. We can also change this input. And now I want you to pause the video and try to add a third variable. So you want to accept x, y, z, and add them all together. Okay, let me show you how I would do this. Since we did it this way, what we could do, let's say we want to add in a brand new number. So we're going to add in another number and we're going to call it z. So now we could just go ahead. Oops, hit the wrong button. By the way, if you see the triple thing like that, that means the Python's still running. You have to type exit with that to get out of that so that you'll be back into the terminal. I actually accidentally copied and paste there. So we're going to go number z, enter a number, and we're going to change this to z. And then we're going to print number z here. So we actually were able to, instead of copy and pasting all this code here, we just had to add those little bit of extra line to call the function, send the prompt in to get the number z. So now let's go with x, and I keep forgetting to click down here, 12, 13, let's put in z, and now we're going to get, we got 12, 13, 15, and then 40 for the total of that. If you'd like to see more videos where we're starting from the ground and building the whole solution together and explaining things, click here on this playlist or check the description below. Hope to see you around.